everybody, and welcome to Women's Empowerment Coffee Break. I am your host, Reverend Rochelle Higgins, and I'm so delighted that you all decided to come here with us and tune in for another episode this week. So today, our topic is it's time to check your notifications. Now, you probably talking like, Rochelle, what you talking about? Well, this topic came from God basically speaking to me one day, and it was kind of like how when you look at your phone and you have, if you have an iPhone, you have a lot of red boxes if you don't check your notifications. And so it's kind of like when you are trying to hear from God, but God is already speaking to you, you just got to check your notifications. So you have to kind of hone in to see God, what is God showing you that's already present in your life that you're not paying attention to. So we're going to go ahead and get this thing started. We're going to get it rolling, and we're going to go ahead and introduce our guests on today. So today we have Christina Royster. She has been such a special addition to the Mount Pisgah AME Church family. Her and her boyfriend Josh, he plays the drum. They have been just a blessing to our congregation, and I thought that it will be a phenomenal opportunity to allow her to share her story on this platform. Christina Royster is a multidisciplinary artist and storyteller with an expertise in painting, drawing, graphic design, and audio narration. Her creative journey is deeply influenced by her extensive background in media and communications. With a career that includes roles at Prudential, Fast Company, Per Solars, and various advertising agencies, Christina has cultivated a keen ability to weave compelling narratives and visual experiences. Her business acumen and creativity has enabled her to influence stakeholders and facilitate collaboration to drive impact across diverse industries. Her artistic endeavors are complemented by her entrepreneurial spirit, exemplified by founding her own business, YBO, Young Black and Opinionated Media LLC, in 2023. Through this venture, Christina is dedicated to empowering, educating, and celebrating her community through culturally aware creative arts and entertainment. In addition to her entrepreneurial achievements, she has hosted three podcasts, including an educational film review podcast showcasing her passions for knowledge, sharing, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Christina has also generously volunteered her time as a mentor and design consulting, guiding immersion talent and offering her expertise to meaningful projects. In her free time, she finds inspiration on nature walks and enjoys completing puzzles. Christina received her Bachelor of Arts in Graphic Design from Rider University with a minor in advertising. She currently resides in Brookline, New Jersey. I introduce to you all Christina Royster. Christina, thank you so much for joining us on today.
Thank you so much, Reverend Michelle. That was a really warm welcome. Thank you. It just reminds me of, how blessed I am and everything that I've gone through. And I can't wait to share my testimony today.
Amen. I'm so glad that you are here. I believe that the audience has just come ready to understand what are you talking about when it comes to checking your notifications. And so my first question for you is, what is your last notification that you got on your phone, and did you check it immediately?
I think let me check actually. The last notification I got was one of those reminder from one of the apps on your phone. I think it was the Calm app.
Mhm.
I love that app, but I did not check it immediately because I knew what it was. When it's like,
Right,
oh, you need to, when your Apple Watch reminds you, like, oh, you need to take a breath. I
right.
don't remember it sometimes. I don't do it sometimes when I know I should. So I definitely ignore some of those notifications.
Okay, so our opening question today is, in today's fast paced world, why do you think it's important to check your notifications both spiritually and personally?
Great question. I feel like First of all, like you just said it, the world is very fast paced. And I think sometimes we're moving too fast and we need to take a beat and slow down. And I'm really guilty of this. Just go, go, go. You're going from work to, extracurriculars and you're not taking the time for yourself. Sometimes physically your body will slow you down. Maybe you're getting sick this winter, or maybe me recently last year had a back injury and I was like, whoa, wait a second, can't move like I used to, so maybe your body will slow you down, or maybe God will slow you down. And sometimes you think that it's, not for your good, but sometimes it's actually working out for your good when he makes you take a beat. I recently experienced that when I was going through a certification process. I hit a roadblock and I was so upset because I was like, oh, I'm right at the finish line. I took all these exams. I couldn't wait to get this done. But sometimes God wants you to take a beat because maybe you're not ready for that. So spiritually, I think it's important to be in tune. And like you said, personally, be in tune with your environment. Sometimes if you're feeling anxious, maybe your environment is starting to look a little messy. Maybe you need to do your chores,
Right.
or, maybe if you haven't checked in with your friends in a while, maybe sometimes God will lay them on your heart. Maybe that's the
Right.
notification that you need to call your friend.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important because you don't want to miss those moments with your friends, your family, with yourself.
Right.
So I would say that's why it's important to check your notifications.
Yeah, I'm glad you said the most important when God puts someone on your heart. I think that
Yeah.
for me on several occasions when God puts somebody on my heart and I don't like reach out immediately, the Lord will have them call me. And I was like,
Yeah. He works
I
like
was
that.
just thinking about you, and it's like if I was proactive, I would have took the initiative. Like God is not just telling me to call this person, just to
Yeah.
call them. But there's a reason that God has placed that person on your heart, and you should just take heed to those moments when
Exactly.
God is like giving you a little nudge to move in the direction
Yes.
you need to go in. So I want to just stop right here to ask you a question about what is a pivotal moment when you felt like it was important and the opportunity or warning that you were getting, and how did you respond to it?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest notifications I received recently was around my business, YBO Media. You introduced it. It's really like an arts and entertainment business. I have that background in media and communications, but I always just went like the corporate route because I was taught that's what you're supposed to do, growing up in America. That's the American dream. I got the degree, I got the job, and now it's time to go work for somebody else. And so it was around 2023 when I founded my business officially, but the brand itself, YBO, has been around for almost a decade actually. It started out as a blog in college,
Mhm.
and I chose the name YBO because I did want it to be a little shocking. Young, Black, and Opinionated. I
Right.
did kind of want to stop people in their tracks. I was blogging about how I was feeling at the time in 2015. And so I feel like I didn't even think that it was going to blow up into a full-fledged business
Mhm.
until I started the podcast. And that
Mhm.
was a notification. I didn't even know what a podcast was, but in
Right.
2018, somebody ran into me and they're like, oh, I read your blog. Have you ever thought about doing audio, doing a podcast? And I love to talk. I feel like I have the gift of gab, so to speak. So I was
Right.
like, yeah, I'll jump on a microphone. And I ended up doing that podcast for 6 years. And that
Wow.
took me into the pandemic. And during the pandemic, yet another notification is when I feel like I heard God, and I feel like I don't have a lot of those red flashing signs like, hey, it's God. I personally don't feel like I have a lot of those. But in 2020, I definitely heard God, and he told me that YBO is a vehicle. I
Mhm.
did not know what that meant exactly. Sometimes you get a word and you think it means one thing and God meant something else.
Right.
So in 2020, I was like, oh, I'm going to become a TV host next. It just makes sense, going from podcast to TV host.
Mhm.
That's what I thought it meant.
Right.
But ultimately in 2023, I started going more of the artistic route because, like I said, I had worked in media, I had worked in communications. I was getting burned out, but I didn't even know what burnout was. But working in social media for that magazine you mentioned in New York City at the height of the pandemic, I was getting burned out. So art was actually my therapy. That was my way to get through. Going from job to job, getting through a pandemic, it was always art that kind of kept me sane.
Mhm.
And that was a huge notification for me. I was like, oh, wait. It just like clicked like a light bulb. I was like, oh, it's always been art that like has been a constant in my life. It never went away. I was, doing art in high school, college, and now as an adult. And it really became my piece. And that's when I decided to really make that my mission of my company, to help people under the healing form of art through, visual arts, different cultural events, as well as storytelling. So those were just a few notifications I got from God in the span of the last 5 years since the pandemic. And I feel like that has really been pivotal for me. I know this season has really been huge for everybody. People kind of, finding their purpose, getting back to their calling. And I'm definitely a testament to that. When you finally have time to do nothing, it makes you realize what you actually like to do. So,
Right, right. So that moment where God was like, "Okay, it's time for you to start your business." Like, did you have any fears? Like, did you like even though sometimes we probably see the notifications and we've probably read them, like, was there any fears related to taking that step of faith?
absolutely. Like I said, since I started my brand in 2018, I could have been got the LLC. I could have been got the trademark, but I was just sitting on that. It was my mom, really. I hope she's watching. It was my mom who was always like, girl, you better get that trademark. You better get that LLC. And so it took me 5 years from 2018 to 2023 to
Right,
finally say, okay, I'm an official business now, to take myself seriously.
right,
I say it jokingly, but it's really not a joke. I always say, like, I wish I believed in me as much
right,
as God believes in me,
right,
because clearly he gave me these ideas, but I'm scared. I'm terrified.
right,
So I sat on that for way too long.
right.
Then when I finally did make it an LLC, I was scared to reach out.
Right.
Josh and I, my partner, he's really awesome with my business. He's an entrepreneur as well, so I feel like we have the same mindset. We
Mhm.
partnered in 2023 on one of our first like give back community service. We gave like backpacks in 2023. I was scared to even go to businesses and ask for a donation,
Right,
and I just couldn't believe that, because I'm like, the resources are there, people want to help, but you have to open up your mouth and you have to ask. And I think about that scripture that's like, knocking and you'll find it, like
right,
it's out there, but you have to kind of put it in the initiative. And so yes, I definitely had some fears. It was like I knew what I should do,
right.
but I didn't do it. And that just comes down to obedience,
Yeah,
really.
right, right. But sometimes it happens like that. Sometimes
Yeah.
we get so caught in the moment. And I've done it multiple times. And I was really looking to God and I'm like, wow, like I've been doing women's empowerment for years,
Yeah.
but it took me till 2021. Like I started in 2013. I didn't make it an LLC until 2021.
Right. Like, if we
So
have these good
yeah,
ideas,
yeah. Right. And so
let's do something about it.
yeah, right. It's like take that step, take that initiative. What are you waiting on? Because there was a lot of fears associated with it, but I'm just glad to say that I finally did it. You know.
Yes.
So what would you say to someone who has fears associated with they know what God they got the notification, they just have fears on stepping out?
Yes, I think that you have to do it scared.
Yeah.
I heard that once and it really stuck with me, because people see me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're hosting these events. You're doing all this stuff now." Don't get it twisted. I'm still not confident. Like,
Right.
I am still scared as I'm doing this.
Right.
But I have no choice but not to do it, because I feel like if I don't use my gifts, then I'm not being a good steward of my gifts. God
Right.
didn't give me these just to sit on. And also I think about the person that I could possibly impact, or maybe I won't impact them if I don't do it.
Right.
So you really have to keep that in mind. Like, it's not just for you. You're doing this for your community, or whatever your purpose is. Hopefully you're doing it to the glory of God. You're doing it for your community, and it's not just for yourself. So you have to get over those fears. I just think about the phrase, faith over fear. If
Right.
if you put your faith over your fear, then you're saying that you believe God can do it as he's done before. And I know that God will never fail. So if he gave you an idea, then I think that he doesn't really, what do they say? He doesn't prepare the called. He doesn't call the prepared. So you might not have all the tools. You might not think that you have everything, but I really believe, like, you just have to get out there and do it scared.
Yeah, yeah. So my question to you, we talked about notifications, we talked about taking those steps of faith. So I want to know the question of how does God send a notification?
Mm. I feel like lately in my life, he has been notifying me through other people. Like, do you ever just here somebody says something, you're like, wow, did you just, are you inside my brain? Like, how did you know that?
Right, right,
And I would give an example. Recently, I was part of an art auction. I was very excited to be invited to show my work in this art auction. And it was a great night, little hors d'oeuvres and everything, and people were dressed up and looking at each other's art, and it was a great place to be. But I was feeling a little salty because it's an art auction and nobody was bidding on my art. I think ultimately my mom ended up buying my painting, and that's okay.
right,
We love the support of our family and friends. But at that event, I ended up stumbling upon the grand opening of a black owned boutique at the same facility. So I
right,
just stumbled in, and as soon as I met the owner, she was talking about how much she loved art. She wanted to celebrate local artists. I said, oh, we're having an art auction right next door. Got
right,
to mingling with her, and it was just like everything that was coming out of her mouth was like everything that I was hoping for. She was like, oh, I just opened this new place, can't wait to fill it with black art. I'm like, hi, my name's Christina Royster, here's my card. So that I feel like was not a coincidence. Like God really will bring people into your life. Certain people, they'll either, show from their lifestyle and their experiences, like, oh, I can do it too. Or maybe even, through their words, they will literally, uh, you know, give you a word that can fill up your cup when you need it most. And so I feel like that was a great example of just God speaking to me, like another, flashing sign, like, you said you wanted to get into, brick and mortar stores this year. You said you wanted to sell YBO in store. Here's this lady who says she wants to support local artists. So I
right,
couldn't believe that we had met like that. And since then, we have been working. Again, that was me, facing my fears and reaching out to her and putting myself out there and kind of pitching my business. And we're going to be, working in hand this year. So I'm really excited about that collaboration. And that would have never happened if I, one, wasn't part of that art auction and went that day, and two, stumbled upon this lady. And I don't think that was an accident. Like I said, I really think God aligned our paths.
right,
And other ways I feel like God notifies us is that gut feeling.
right,
I have ignored my gut feeling so many times. That's the Holy Ghost, that's God. I
right,
have learned, like, oh, it's not just you're feeling off. No, that is God speaking to you. And I would say I had an experience like that at my last full-time role. I was a corporate communicator, working at Fortune 500 company. A lot of personalities I didn't align with. As you guys can see, I'm kind of a free spirit. I'm creative. I'm an artist. And some folks there were a little stuffy. And I just had a gut feeling that I was not going to like it. Like, when you start a new job and you can tell
right,
immediately.
right,
I was like, oh, this is not it. This is not for me. So at that point, I had to kind of change my mindset and think about, okay, maybe this isn't my favorite job, but God put me here for a reason.
right,
And maybe I thought this was the job I was praying for. I thought my prayers were answered. Oh my gosh, I finally got the job. And then once I got in it, I did not like it. So I was like, okay, God, why would you let me come here if it's not for me? So once I got that gut feeling, ooh, this is not what I thought it was. I realized, okay, maybe it's just another stepping stone. Maybe I'm going to take what I learned here. And ultimately, I ended up putting what I learned there into my own business. So I think you got to listen to that gut feeling, and, you can't just complain about it or like try to work your way out of it. Like, no, if you're feeling it, then there's a reason. So I would say that's how God notifies me personally.
yeah. So like that gut feeling, like expound on that more, because sometimes like I have my these gut feelings, or I feel like, oh, I'm not supposed to do this, I'm not supposed to do
Mm-mm.
that. So talk to the audience about those gut feelings and how they can like notice, what's God and what's them, like the separation between the two.
Mm. That is kind of hard, right? Like, is it something that I just don't want to do, or is it something God's telling me I shouldn't do?
Mm,
Sometimes even I struggle with that. Sometimes I am on the line, but I feel like if you have to kind of like talk yourself into it, or like talk yourself out of it, then you probably know it's not of God,
right,
sometimes, like, for example, before I was in my lovely relationship now, I was talking to somebody else. I had a gut feeling that was not the person for me. We
right,
were just, it was very tumultuous, texting back and forth, arguing. That's not how love should be. That's not the kind of relationship that you want. And
right,
I knew that. I saw the red flag, but I was still pushing for it. So that's when you know, like, okay, you're going against the grain. It's not comfortable. It's probably making you uncomfortable. I feel like when you're at ease and when your mind and your body are at ease, that means you feel comfortable. That's the gut feeling, like, oh yes, I'm safe. This is a good place. And so fast forward, I go on the first date with my now partner Josh. We've been dating for 5 years. My first date with him, I was like, oh, this is how you should be treated. Oh, it was like a light bulb went off. Again, like that's when God was telling me, like, no, forget that other joker. Like this is what you need. So I feel like sometimes, like you said, you have to tote that line between, like, okay, is this God or is this me? I feel like also, if it's been nagging at you for a little while, then I think it's God, because we wouldn't just have these little inklings for no reason, right?
Right,
Like
right,
I
right,
feel like he plants it in you. For example, there's something I'm still sitting on. I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's a mobile art studio. That's like
right.
my dream. That's my vision. I want to, like, I was inspired by a TV show where they renovated vans, and people
Hey,
were having all different types of businesses out of vans. And I was like, why can't I turn a van into a mobile art studio and bring
right,
art around my community? If
right.
anybody's listening and wants to help fund that, please
Boy,
let me know. But I have not even started that because, again, the fear a little bit,
right.
but it's just nagging at me year after year. I've had this idea since 2023. So
Wow.
I'm like, okay, clearly I need to do this. And maybe I'll get there one day. Maybe God is giving me a little snippet of what is to come.
Right,
But I don't think that I came up with that idea by myself, because it's not an original idea. There's
mm,
other mobile art studios out there, but I can just envision myself doing that. And I think that's a little inkling that God gave me. So I feel like that's a little bit of how you can tell, like, is it me? Because, like I said, going back to 2020, I thought I was going to be a TV host. That
right,
clearly did not happen. So I don't think God was telling me to be a TV host.
right.
Again, I just think He was telling me, like, this will be the vehicle, and
Mm,
all these experiences that I've had to figure out what that means going along the journey. So don't be afraid of the journey. I know trust the process is kind of overused these days, but
right.
truly, like, you have to go through it. There's no way of getting out of the process. You can't skip to the end.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you said that. So I want to ask, like, what are some strategies to kind of like declutter? You know how you have those notifications that are
Yeah.
like, oh, just like spam, and then
Mm-hmm.
the actual notification. Like, how do you filter all of that, the distractions? Sometimes we get spam mail, and it kind of clutters our
Yeah.
vision, and we can't really hear God, or we can't see the signs and the notifications and the nudges. And how do we eliminate that, declutter everything, so that we can make sure that we are sensitive to hearing God and knowing our next step?
Yes, I would say first you need to literally declutter. And I have become a do not disturb girly. Turn your phone off. Turn your phone off, because in doing that, that has allowed me to, okay, now I'm not checking Instagram first thing in the morning. Now I'm actually getting into prayer first thing in the morning instead. And I feel like once you take away all the literal distractions and it's just you and your thoughts, some people are a little uncomfortable with their own thoughts, but that's exactly why you need to dig deeper into it. So I would say prayer, talking to God. Recently I heard somebody say, like, talk to God, he'll talk to you. Listen to God, he'll listen to you. I love that, because I feel like it is a two-way relationship, right? And so you have to make time for God, and really get into prayer. I feel like that's a great way to, like, get into your thoughts. Meditation, I feel like it's hard for me to sit still and just, like, be zen for a few minutes. So my kind of meditation is like journaling. I
Yeah,
feel like getting your thoughts out, writing the vision, making it plain, like writing down your goals, writing down your dreams, having it somewhere where you can read. I have multiple journals and vision boards and affirmations all around me. And that leads me to the affirmations. I
mm,
feel like I had to start unfollowing certain people, certain accounts, even certain podcasts or television shows, maybe certain things you don't need to watch, or kind of soak in that content, because I feel like we are sponges. There's a lot of content around us, from the billboards down the highway to everything. Everybody is fighting for our attention. And so I feel like if you kind of, dwindle it down, like, okay, I'm not going to be on Instagram this week. I'm going to, focus on this project that I've been putting off. I feel like those kind of things that can like kind of help you center. So definitely for me, it's been like not having so much content, not consuming so much content, or consuming better content, more joyful content. I feel like that's a great way to declutter, starting from what you watch, what you listen to those will help produce, more positive thoughts. So those are some tricks that have really worked for me. And I'm very organized with my time. Like I will schedule out my day down to the minute. I know not everybody is like that,
Right.
but if you schedule in breaks, especially creative breaks,
Right.
I am an artist, so I'm going to plug, doodling or you said in my bio, I love doing puzzles. I love word puzzles.
Mm.
It really comes down to how you're spending your time and, where your thoughts are. I feel like that can help you declutter a lot. So those are some of my tips.
That's good. I love it. I love it. I also like when you talked about actually scheduling out your time to the exact minute. I think that is really like, oh my God,
It's not
incredible.
for everyone.
Right. No, no, no. But I feel like if like my little thing that I don't like to see notifications on my phone at all.
Yeah, I
So
delete
I'm a
it.
stickler for checking email. Like when it comes, I check it. You know, I'm a stickler for a
Mhm.
notification, I check it. So I'm a stickler for that, but and I never miss a message. So like I want to be able to like actually be productive in such a way where I'm being a good steward on just my time. Like so
Yeah,
really give us some tips on how can we like map out our days so that we can like
yes.
be good stewards.
Well, for me, like I said, I like to start the morning with my devotional, prayer, maybe some stretching if I remember it. I'm not a saint. I don't always remember to stretch and do everything. But I feel like that's the great way to start your day before anything else, before I turn on the TV and look at the latest headline. Also, like I plan out my outfits ahead of time, I try to have all that stuff planned out, or at least in my mind, I'm already thinking like, what am I going to wear today? That way you don't have to spend any time on, little minute tasks like that. But I would say communication most importantly because, for example, I talk to my mom 3, 4 times a day. We'll just randomly call each other. Then there are times where, Mom, you can't call me right in this span, okay? In these 2 hours, I communicate with her. I'm going to be in class, so don't call me this time.
Mm.
Or, I live with my partner, so I'll already have dinner planned at 8 a.m.
Okay.
Sorry, but we're having fish tonight, whether you want it or not. Like I already know, I already know what we're gonna have for dinner. I already planned that out. That way, like I said, you can focus on more important decision making. I don't want to worry about what am I gonna eat for dinner because that's taking away time from more important decisions. And so, like I said, I do try to work in those breaks. I think that's important so that you don't get stressed out, you don't get overwhelmed. Yes, oh, I have to after this women's empowerment coffee break, I have to do some work. I don't want to work on a Friday night, but if I, allot maybe 2 hours to that, then for the rest of the night I'll watch Netflix for 2 episodes. Like I try to space it out that way. But definitely communicating with your friends, your
Mm.
family. I feel like sometimes my biggest notification is my friend group chat.
Right.
I'll go away to take a shower, come back, and there's 30 notifications in the
Right.
group chat.
Yeah.
And that's me and my friends will communicate like, hey, y'all, I'm at work. I'll read this later. Or,
Right.
just
Mm.
so people don't think you're ignoring them. Like you
Right.
said, I actually learned on the job. I had to learn the hard way. I was responding to emails too fast. I
Oh wow.
learned, I was always trying to be a yes man and hurry up and oh yes yes. And someone gave me a good tip like why don't you don't have to respond immediately, take a step back, think about it, and then you can respond. And I that tip alone helped me just realize oh if I don't respond within 5 minutes, the world's not going to explode. I can take my time to think about what they're asking me, respond in a good way, be helpful. So I think that those are some tips. You don't have to respond right away. It's okay to put your phone on do not disturb. It's not selfish. It's really needed and necessary at times.
Yeah, good, good, good. This is all good. And so, like when you mentioned the girl group chat and you talking to your mom and your partner Josh, so like how do they all play in the role of accountability in your life?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like my mom is my biggest cheerleader. She's always like hyping me up about my business and supporting me there.
Mm.
And sometimes I need constant affirmation from the people outside because it can get lonely as an entrepreneur when you're like, is this working? Do people like this? I don't know. And I feel like my mom definitely always pours into me. You need people who are pouring into you and not draining you, right?
Right.
So, her with her affirmations and positivity, always encouraging me. Josh, as a fellow creative, he's a musician, and so he's always, helping me think of new ideas and way to get clients, and different ways to advertise things I didn't think about before. And even my friends, just having a safe space where I'm not talking about my business, or I'm
Right.
not talking about my relationship. We're just cutting up about the latest thing we watched on TV or something.
Right.
So I feel like sometimes you just need that brain dump where you can just, have a kiki with your friends about TikTok,
Right.
and it's okay to like be vulnerable. And I definitely feel like they are kind of my notifications as well. Like they keep me informed. Like I said, sometimes when I don't want to see the news, and I want to be unplugged, my friends will still, tell me what's going on. Oh, Christina, I thought of you. I love when people send me an art opportunity and they're like, oh, I saw this and I thought of you. That is a notification where I'm like,
Right.
okay.
Right.
One time it was three people sent me the same grant. I was like, okay, I
Wow.
clearly need to apply to this because three people told me. So it's great to have, that support system of people who are encouraging you. They are, aware of your goals, and they're helping you meet your goals sometimes, and giving you strength when you don't, see a way to continue to go on. So I really appreciate them always like reminding me, staying on me. It's good. Like you said, it's good to have that accountability partner. Even recently with my art, business is picking up. I'm excited about that, but I'm kind of rushing. Josh will be like, "Don't rush the art. Remember, don't rush the art." And I'm like, it's sad that you have to remind me of that, but sometimes you need somebody else in your ear to remind you. So
Right, right. Good, good. So I want to kind of shift the conversation to the Q&A portion of the interview.
sure.
So I have some comments that are some questions that are in the comments. So I'm going to go ahead and read the first one. So the first one I have is, do you think that there are specific types of notification that should always be turned off?
Yeah, like gossip,
Right.
definitely gossip, or just negativity.
Right.
When there have been times when my friends come to me, tell, oh my gosh, did you know so and so is, I'll think to myself like, why do I even care? This
Right.
has nothing to do with me. I don't even know so and so, and I barely know the other party involved. And so those are times where I'm just like, okay, you know what? If you could just not mention this person to me anymore. I've had to say that, and I felt bad, but I was just like, I truly don't need to know, don't care to know.
Right.
So certain things like that, you might have to hurt some feelings, but things like that, if somebody's bringing you gossip or something, you have to let them know, I don't really want to be a part of this. I don't want to talk about her like that. Or
Right.
yeah, like I said, just negativity. People who are telling you, oh, are you sure it's gonna work out?
Right.
That's a red flag. That's not the person you need. You need people who are encouraging you, and you need discernment. You need to know when somebody's hating on you versus when they're trying to help you out.
Right.
I definitely have had to learn that as well. So those are some, red flags, I would say.
Okay, so the next question I have is, how do you consult notifications of mental health and stress levels?
Oh yeah, I definitely have felt that before. One time I was waking up every Monday morning getting ready for work and my stomach was hurting. Every Monday morning like clockwork. I was like, what's going on here? Talked to my therapist. She was like, your anxiety is manifesting physically.
Right.
And I didn't even know that was possible. I was like, oh, why is my stomach upset? And it was because I just knew, oh, it's 8 a.m. on a Monday morning, time to go to work. Like I wasn't liking the job, obviously. So I was just feeling anxious in my body.
Yeah.
And that let me know, okay, I think I had to change my routine at that time. I think the first thing I was doing was like, oh, time to wake up. And I was literally rolling out of bed, working from home, jumping straight onto the computer. That's when I started to implement this new routine I was telling you guys about, devotional prayer before anything else, to start my day on a positive note. So that was something physically a red flag where I was like, ooh, this is anxiety. I need to do something about this because I don't want to be sick every morning. This isn't fun and it's not healthy. So definitely that. I would say sleep. If you're up tossing and turning at night, then there's something that you need to work out. I feel like sleep is very important. And I have had times where I'm up at 3 a.m. worrying. Maybe it's time to journal. Maybe it's time to write those thoughts out because sleep is very important, I've learned, to our health. So those are just some ways where I've like physically got notifications. And like I said, burnout. I know that people were throwing that around during the pandemic and people don't quite know what it means, but I can feel like my eyes getting heavy from looking at the screen all the time. And just like fatigue and not feeling energized.
Yeah.
So I think you mentioned in my bio, I love nature walks.
Yeah.
If it is above 50 degrees, I'm gonna try to go outside. Okay. So that is one where I learned about myself. Just take stock of when you feel comfortable, when you feel most safe, when you feel most relaxed. And I took stock of, oh, every time I go outside, I feel better. Doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter where it is, even if it's just walking in the parking lot for 10 minutes, I instantly feel better in fresh air. So those are some physical ways where you can start to feel if you're feeling fatigue or burnout, or you're not getting any sleep, or if you're not eating. Those are certain signs like it's time to work something out spiritually, mentally.
Okay, good, good. So the next question is is they said for Rochelle, if your notifications could come with the coffee flavor, what would they be? Mine would be I like caramel, I like mocha, so maybe a combination of the both.
Ooh.
The next question is if you could send one notification to every aspiring artist in the world, what would it say?
Oh, I love that. I would say never stop creating. That is like a reminder, like flashing on your phone. Like, remember, don't stop creating, because there have been times where, because my art is my business, I'm just like, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't know if nobody's buying it. How is it going? I don't know. But I just have to remember, like, just keep creating. It doesn't matter if people are buying it up, or it doesn't matter if one time I made a painting, it came out ugly. I thought it was ugly. But I'm just glad that I created, because the act of creating was therapeutic for me. I never want to stop. I really do believe it's like one of those skills. If you don't use it, you lose it. And so, like I said, even if it's just a doodle a day,
Mhm.
that's just me using my skill set, and never stop creating, because the world needs art. The
Right.
world needs my silly, charismatic, energetic, bold art. Even if I don't like it sometimes, or if I think other people aren't liking it, that's okay. I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for myself, because I like art. So I have to remind myself of that sometimes in my mission. So I would send that to all artists, whether you're a dancer, a singer, or a musician. Just don't stop creating. We need that, especially in this time when I feel like people sometimes don't appreciate the arts as much. I feel like we're coming back to people
Yeah.
liking more, grassroots, homegrown things. It's nostalgic. It reminds you of your childhood. And I really do encourage people in my mission to, go back to that childlike imagination. So never stop creating.
Amen. Amen. So the painting in the back, did you paint that behind you?
No, I did not.
Oh,
But
okay.
I
Okay.
do
Cool.
like to support other artists
Okay.
as well. So that's why I'm trying to work on a gallery wall eventually and get all
Okay.
my art up here. But I do kind of do this style, this paint pour style. So definitely, if anybody is interested in some art, check out my website, YBO Media.
Okay. So the next question I have is, do you think God ever sends reminder notifications when we start drifting away from purpose?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I wonder if I have an example recently. I don't know, but I feel yes. My answer is yes, definitely. I just feel like, maybe what I said about the job, kind of feeling like I didn't fit in there. This isn't for me. I think I needed that reminder, because I was getting away from my art actually. That was at a time where I was more focused on climbing the career ladder and getting my coins out. And so I feel like I kind of put my art on the back burner. I was continuing with the YBO podcast, but I wasn't giving it my all. I wasn't really feeling it anymore. And I think that was kind of a notification like, okay, it's time to switch things up. So I definitely feel like, sometimes we can drift away. Like I said, I had my vision. I thought that I was going to be doing XYZ, but then it'll bring it back. Sometimes God will just have somebody, reach out to me like, hey, do you still do graphic design? Yes, I do. I haven't done it in a while, but of course, yes, I do. And sometimes that's a notification to me like, oh yeah, I still got it in me. I still got these chops. So I definitely feel like sometimes when we drift away, and somehow God is going to bring you back. Some way you always end up right back where He wants you to. So
Okay, and you know that is so true because I feel like sometimes we literally uh sometimes we ignore it, and sometimes
Yeah.
we don't. Sometimes the Lord may say, I need you to walk away from that, but because we're
Mm,
so comfortable in that situation, we want to hold on, or something about it has some type of history that we feel like,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so have you ever had a moment where, you were so deeply connected to something that was tied to something that was sentimental, it had a lot of history, like was that hard for you to kind of take that next?
Yes. I feel like it was the transition from YBO podcast to YBO media and just sunsetting my podcast after 6 years, and people were like, wait, why? Like, it's good. Like, but just because it's good doesn't mean that I need to do it anymore. Like,
Right,
I just kept feeling, like I said, I feel like it was that gut feeling where I was like, I'm not having as much fun with this
right,
as I used to, but I'm just going through the motions because I built the audience and I don't want people to be like, oh, Christina left us out to, high and dry. But again, I was like, I have to do this for me. I don't really want to do this anymore. I put out a video like, I hope you guys will join me on my next phase, but I'm not doing this anymore. And I can't tell you the relief I felt once I just stopped doing it for other people or stopped doing it for the views, stopped doing it for the audience, whatever, fill in the blank. And I finally listened to my gut. And now I'm doing a podcast that I love. So I had to put that one down to focus on something else
right,
that I is even more awesome than I could have ever expected. So I definitely feel like I didn't listen at first,
right,
because if I did listen, I probably would have ended YBO a few episodes ago,
right.
a few seasons ago. But I think that once I finally did, then it was like a catalyst for everything else that I've been doing.
Yeah, so you talk about the YBO podcast. So like I don't know much about it. So like how did it start? How did you like form it, and like how did you build an audience? Like how did you grow over the years?
Yes. So when I first started, I was really kind of doing like pop culture news, kind of putting my twist on it, giving my opinion. And then I started to, fall into different episodes about more cultural issues, things that matter to me. So
Right,
that's when I first realized, okay, I can't just do this for the audience. Like, I have to also keep myself in it, keep it authentic, because I was trying to, climb up the ladder like all these other podcasts and be the big podcaster. But I had to, remember my mission and remember why I started in the first place. So I feel like then it became more of an interview style, kind of like this actually, where I
mhm,
was, talking to Black business owners and different things like that. But I feel like all the while I was like building my storytelling abilities. And I feel like that is really what I got out of it, learning how to produce a story, tell a story. I've since, helped launch other podcasts. Um, and then having my own podcast that built up my resume. And so my
yeah,
corporate job, it was at a media company, and they were looking around like, oh, we want to start a new podcast. Does anybody have experience? That's when I was the first name to come up, because people around knew what I was working on in my private time. And so then I was able to co-host a podcast for the company. And in that experience, just learned even more about, how to, build a production and monetize it. And so I learned all these stepping stones over the years, and I feel like it was really just a plane. I was building the plane as I was flying,
right,
kind of learning as I go. I didn't necessarily have a lot of mentors in the space, but I
right.
had some friends who were helpful along the way, who definitely like showed me, how to do audio engineering and things like that to put the podcast together. And now I get to work with other people who are aligned in that space and utilize their talents, because I'm not great at the editing and everything. I can chat and I can, facilitate a conversation, but there's other parts that go into a podcast that I never really would have learned if I didn't get that corporate experience too. So I feel like the podcast, what I had to learn is like, I am not what I produce. I was just telling somebody that this week. Like, my productivity is not based on how many episodes I put out or how many people watch,
Right,
I had to really separate myself from the job.
right,
And so once I did that, it really became more fun again. And from there, I had a few episodes that really, I could tell, like I said, going back to that gut feeling, that notification, I was like, oh, I loved filming this episode. I didn't dread, like, oh, gotta record today. Like,
mhm,
I love doing this certain episode, and other people loved it too. And it was kind of like my documentary review episodes. So
yeah,
that's how I ended up launching Watchworthy Podcast with Josh. We co-host that one together.
yeah,
And it's really like edutainment, I like to say. That's always kind of been my mission. Going back to what we said about you are what you consume with that content. As an influencer, as a storyteller, I also try to put out content that is positive, so that I'm, making an impact in a positive way. And so I feel like all of that was kind of leading up to like now I'm kind of perfecting my craft. And it did take time. It took, I said I launched in 2018. What's
Right.
that? Like, I carried the 7 years ago. So all that time, like you said, same with Women's Empowerment Coffee Break, just learning as you go and kind of perfecting it to make it your own. And then you get a little more comfortable and then you're really more authentic. And I think that your audience can see that too.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you shared that. And I'm glad you've been able to like give your perspective. I want you guys to put in the comments like your experiences with checking your notifications, some reservations that you have from taking that step. We want to hear your experiences. And so feel free to write those in the comments while me and Christina are engaging in conversation. So I really want to just like dig deep and really just talk about just um the obedience part
Mm-hmm.
with checking, like, yes, seeing it, but what can you say to our audience about the obedience part?
I would say in the last year, obedience has been top of mind for me because every time I did move when God told me to, it blew my mind. It worked out even better than I could imagine. And I want to use the example of my art workshops because that was something I had never done before. I just had the idea. I was okay, if my business is going to be an art business, I want to bring art to my community. How can I do it? And I think one of the notifications I got is when I moved here to Brooklawn, New Jersey. We're right on the waterfront. It's like a big picturesque gazebo right there, just begging for somebody to host an event. And I felt like that was a notification from God. Like he physically brought me to the location and moved me right here. And so we moved here in June. I hosted my first Art in the Park in July, and you and your family came out, Rev Rochelle. I so appreciated that because that was my first time doing it.
Right.
Whole month I was worried sick. Oh, nobody's gonna come, or what if nobody supports me, or what are people gonna think? That's something I always have to get over, right? Think, what are people gonna think about me? What is God gonna think if I don't do this?
Come
How
on.
about that? Let's ask
Yes.
that question. So hosted my event. It went better than I could imagine. We had like 10 kids out there, and they're like, oh, what are we doing the next one?
Right.
That was a sign to me. I was like, oh, I didn't even think about the next one. I was just trying to get through this one.
Right.
And so that just showed me what could happen if I just actually, God gave me this idea and actually go for it. And so from there, hosted another one in August, hosted another one in September. And I had an event once a month until December. And I was just feeling so great about that because I was like, if I never did what God told me to do, I wouldn't be here. So obedience was so important
Yeah.
to just the flow of, I would say, the last half of 2024 for me.
Right. So the opportunity that you got to do your workshops for the county library, talk about that. 'Cause when I
Yes.
saw that, I was like, "Come on, Christina!"
Thank you. That was another one where I felt like God spoke through somebody else. I volunteer with a nonprofit, Success First, and Miss Carlotta, she was like, "Hey, we do our programming through the library. Have you ever considered that for you?" I was scared because I was like, "No, like I'm just a new business. I'm just a small business. I haven't even gotten my art workshops down pat. I don't know how that'll go." So went on the website, filled out a form, and I was like, okay, that's it. Sometimes, like I said, you got to do it scared. Sometimes
Right.
I'll send an email and then shut my laptop because I'm so scared. I'm like, oh, they'll get back to me eventually.
Right.
And so they did. Someone reached out right away, and they're like, it was easier than I thought. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes you're building up these scenarios in your head, and it's worse than it actually is. Because once they got back to me, they were like, "Hey, what's the name of your workshop? How many people do you want? How much is it going to cost? Okay, what's the date? Perfect." Like this has been such a seamless process because I just reached out and they got back to me. It was as simple as that. And no, sometimes people aren't always going to get back to you, or some people aren't going to get your ideas. They're not going to be as gung ho.
Right.
Actually, I wanted to get started right then and there when I had reached out to them last fall, but they were like, actually, can you save this until Black History Month? We would like to do this during February. So
Mhm.
that was actually a blessing because it gave me more time to prepare. So little things like that, if you just reach out, the information is out there, but you have to put a little work in. One of those scriptures that always sticks out to me is, faith without work is dead.
Yeah.
Because I can't just think, oh, God's gonna send me a job. Oh, God's gonna send me a man. No, you have to get out there and put some work into. So especially with my business, I have been learning, like, if I just put myself out there, meet the right people. Sometimes, like I said, I volunteer. I already have enough on my plate, and I still somehow find time to volunteer.
Right.
But in volunteering my time, being a good steward of my time, other opportunities have come. So it really has been a blessing, if
Mhm.
you just do what God tells you to do.
Right. And so, even talking about like promoting yourself, how can you tell the audience if they have a vision that God's telling them to do? How do they get the courage to promote themselves?
Yes, you have to really talk to yourself and say, it's okay if I'm embarrassed. It's okay if sometimes I feel like, oh, I'm embarrassing myself posting on TikTok again. But
Mhm.
so what? Other
Right.
people have done way worse
Right.
on social media for way less.
Yes.
So if you have a vision or if you have a story, just start. Just start talking. Doesn't matter if it's 3 people watching your TikToks or if it's 300. You just have to start somewhere and it'll grow from there. And not just social media. I have really come back to grassroots efforts. Like I said, hanging flyers. I felt so silly out last summer hanging flyers in my neighborhood. I was new to the neighborhood. People probably thought I was this wacky artist lady, but it worked. Hanging flyers, people said, I actually saw your flyer, and that's what made me come. So it made me realize, sometimes you have to use unconventional methods when
Right.
you have an unconventional vision, right? Or
Mhm.
if you have an unconventional goal, maybe it's never been done before. Maybe people aren't going to understand it, but you really have to try to find your village and find those people who are going to back you up and who are going to support you. Sometimes you might have to start alone, but other people will jump on the bandwagon. Trust me, once they see you picking up steam.
Mhm.
So don't be afraid to promote yourself. Like I said, other people do it all the time, and maybe you don't have to be on every platform. That's what I learned as a social media producer when I was working for that media company. You don't have to be on every platform. It's okay, Grandma, if you're not on TikTok. That
Right.
you maybe you want to bring it to Facebook, maybe you want to bring it to Instagram, or I'm not really a LinkedIn person anymore. I used to be on LinkedIn a lot, but then sometimes I felt like it was becoming humble bragging, and
Right.
sometimes I feel guilty, like, oh, I'm missing out on LinkedIn. It's okay. You're not missing out. You don't have to be everywhere and spread yourself thin. Find the people who are rocking with you and talk to them. And
Right.
it really opened my eyes when I started, posting more, like handing out flyers and things like that, because I realized some people who are probably my target audience might not even be on social media.
Right.
So you have to, keep an eye on trends and see what people are doing, especially the people around you. If you feel like you're talking out into a void on Instagram, maybe that's not the platform for you. So I definitely would encourage people as a storyteller myself, to find what works for you and where your audience is when you're promoting yourself.
Okay, good, good. So is there any like words, final words that you would like to say to the audience?
Yeah, I guess I would just go back to what I said about uncomfortability. Sometimes it's not comfortable. So you ever get a notification on your phone, you're like, oh, I don't want to answer that call, like it might it might just be somebody you know is gonna talk your ear off. But whether you want to answer or not, sometimes there's things you want to do, some things that you have to do, some things you need to do, and I've learned to push through that uncomfortability. No, I haven't loved every step of entrepreneurship or even my corporate 9 to 5, dealing with different personalities and supervisors, people I didn't always get along with, long commutes, even things like that I had to deal with. There were certain aspects that I didn't like, but it was necessary. So remember that, the storms, when you're going through the storms, you might not like it, but it is necessary because storms help grow flowers. They bring the rainbows. So I definitely want to leave people with that, as far as notifications. Be mindful of who you have in your circle, who you're talking to, what you're consuming, because I feel like that all kind of pours into you and makes, whether you believe it or not, some people don't even realize, that you're soaking in things as a sponge. And so you want to make sure that you're filling yourself with positive affirmations, and you're getting into prayer and you're meditating, you're doing those things that are going to help you kind of center yourself every day. I have learned it is a daily thing. Like,
Right.
I can't just do it once a week. I have to do it every single day, sometimes multiple times a day,
Yeah.
to really stay focused and stay on that path, because there are so many things pulling for our attention every day, whether it's work or school or kids or what have you. But you only get one life. You only there's only one you, and there's only your purpose. And so you got to remember to kind of run your race and not get distracted by what's on the left and right and all those notifications. So
That's good. I've enjoyed this interview. You have some great feedback in the comments.
thank you so
And
much.
Reverend Moore says you're such an inspiration. May you continue to move as God leads you.
Thank you so much.
So, yes, I just appreciate the whole interview. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for agreeing to do this, sharing your story, being a light, promoting yourself, telling people to do it scared. Because I know that's one of the hardest things to do because you think about all the unknowns and you're like,
Yes,
oh,
but I've been telling myself, what's the best that could happen
right,
instead of the worst. Try
yeah,
to think about what is the best possible scenario, you know?
right, right, right. And you have been such an inspiration to me. Like
Oh my
I am
gosh.
inspired. I am inspired. Like I am totally
You
inspired.
inspire me. Are you kidding me?
I'm
I appreciate you for inviting me on here and having this topic because I had my choice of topics. You threw out a few ideas, but this one really stood out to me because I have literally worked in social media, but also I feel like, as millennials, just I've gleaned so much from you. You're doing it all, mom of three, you're still in school, you're hosting this show, and you are really being inspiration to others. So you have showed me like how to focus, how to drill in, and and still put yourself first. So I love that about you, Reverend Rochelle, too.
you. Miss Tina Thomas said, I just got a notification, LOL.
Well, I hope that it was a good one. I hope that everybody got a notification for this show, and if they missed it, they can watch the replay. And
Yeah,
I definitely hope it encourages folks because I feel like this is something that we're all dealing with right now,
right,
as far as headlines and different things. It's something going on every day, and some of them aren't very positive. I was telling my mom lately, like, Mom, I just feel down because of the news. She said, "Stop watching it. Just
right,
stop watching
right,
it."
right.
It's that simple sometimes. It's like you want to turn it off, but you don't. Just do it. Yeah.
Right, right. So I just want to thank you. This has been great. If you enjoyed this, please share. We want this to get out to as many people as possible. If
Yes.
this interview has blessed you, please share. Christina, could you tell them how to get in contact with you, how to be a part of what you're doing in the community and you're on this journey that you're going through?
Yes, absolutely. Please check out my website, ybomedia.com. There you can see what I'm up to. You can see photos from past events. I have an online shop there if you'd like to check out my artwork. And I also post my events on there. So as you mentioned, I'm going to be having a art workshop series coming up with the Camden County Library System. If anyone's in the South Jersey area and you want to check out what I'm doing in February. Otherwise, you can follow me on Instagram at ybo.media. And my personal page is at Miss Chris D. That's what I go by on social media. And I think that's everything. I'm really just active on Instagram, Facebook, not so much TikTok anymore, but I do have a presence on there too if you want to see some of my artwork videos. And yeah, I would love for more people to really tune into the arts this year. I feel like that's a great way to bring our community together. I remember towards the end of last year at church, we did a vision board, community board
Yeah.
project where it was kind of like a prayer board. That was us getting our crafty
Right.
side. So I feel like people say, "Oh, I'm not creative," but I am here to tell you that everybody can be creative. I'm here to spread creativity. So remember, never stop creating.
Yes, thank you so much. Next week we have someone that is called Dr. Jessica Maxwell. She's going to come on and she's going to pour into us, and you don't want to miss it. Women's
Yes.
Empowerment Coffee Break is every Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're live on Facebook, and you can also catch it on YouTube. I'm trying to give two platforms where you can view the content at any moment after the replay. So I just thank you for
Yeah.
joining in. Tune in next week. Christina, thank you for being a blessing to us. Please share, tag your friends because we want this beautiful story to be shared and so that someone else's life
Yeah.
can be impacted. That's what Women's Empowerment Coffee Break is all about. So you guys enjoy your Friday evening and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.